Sha la 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 la. Happy birthday, Mike Roberts. And welcome to another edition of Mondays in Midtown, coming to you from our newest studio angle, the set of entertainment tonight. I'm Mark Zinn, and we have a great show for you this week, including an exclusive sit-down with Mayor Francis Slay, of course, the mayor of St. Louis. We'll have part one of the interview, which he talks about local elections, which will be tomorrow. So you can imagine that we will get into those local elections as being the only source of media here on St. Louis University's campus that apparently cares about local elections. Get to that in just a second with Mark's Moment. We'll also have all the details that took place from last week's storm spotting class. That's right, the National Weather Service warning coordination meteorologist Jim Cramper came to SLU to give a storm spotting class. We'll talk about that in a second. And of course, a lot of fun, a lot of commentary, and a lot of politics on this week's program. In Mark's Moment, I just want to briefly talk to you about the importance of voting in municipal elections. In 2008, November of 2008, St. Louis University received for the first time an on-campus polling place here at the Bush Student Center. Pretty big deal, pretty nice deal. And in that election, obviously a presidential election, there was a 70% turnout among registered SLU student voters. Pretty nice turnout, you know, comparable to the national average of that race. 5 months later, for the April municipal election, we're still in school. City of St. Louis Board of Elections gave us another polling place here at the Bush Student Center. The mayor of St. Louis is running for re-election. We have our locally elected official, 19th Ward Alderwoman Marlene Davis's election and race as well, and a few other things on the ballot. You know how many people turned out for that election? 3%. So you go from 70% voter turnout to for issues at the national level and senators, because you know, obviously you get all your services from the federal government and your U.S. senators, very important stuff, you know, affects you at the local level, to 5 months later, when we're still in school, I know it's almost summer, but 5 months later, and 3%, or 55 SLU student voters turned out from the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Bush Student Center to vote. 55 student voters voted to elect Mayor Slay. If we're supposed to be leaders in the community and leaders at St. Louis University, leaders for the future, if you will, it doesn't look good that we can't even vote in municipal elections. I mean, you get most of your services from these local government. They call them street-level bureaucrats. Your firefighters, the streets that you're driving on here in the city, the trash collection, to the police officers that show up at your door, to the Grand Bridge Project. All that's really facilitated through local government. And the fact that you, as a SLU community, wasn't motivated enough to vote in that election is shocking. So you know what the Board of Elections did after 55 student voters voted? They took that polling place away from us for municipal elections. So tomorrow's election, you won't be able to vote here. You'll have to go to Central Baptist Church on Washington, which is about a mile and a half northwest of the Bush Student Center. And it's sad. It's sad that I'm going to keep on going on about it, but it really makes me upset as an urban affairs student and as someone who cares about your right to vote and your duty to vote. So go out and vote tomorrow. So either way, you should vote. Now, as promised, here is part one of our exclusive three-part series with Mayor Francis Slay, where he talks about tomorrow's vote on the earnings tax. All right. Well, Mayor Slay, thanks for coming back on Mondays in Midtown.
I'm happy to be here.
It's hard not to think we have an election coming up here on first week of April, next Tuesday, and the big vote will be with the earnings tax. Right. Since it's 31% of the city's budget, what would eliminating the earnings tax, I guess repealing the earnings tax, mean for the city of St. Louis?
It would be devastating. It would be very, very bad in terms of our ability to provide public safety and services that the people of St. Louis enjoy and they expect. We would have to slash virtually everything in our budget. We'd have to lay off firefighters and police officers. It would impact public safety in a big way, and would also cause us to try to figure out how we would replace these revenues. We'd have to go out and try to raise some other revenues with some other, in other ways, possibly some other increase some other taxes. Whatever that is would have to be determined by the people of St. Louis. But whatever you think about the earnings tax, it would be irresponsible to get rid of it unless and until there is a viable and an acceptable plan to replace it.
It seems like the city and your office and even the aldermen are pretty confident that it'll pass in the election. Do you agree with that, I guess?
Well, first of all, I believe, I've always said this, we're not taking this for granted. We're working real hard at this. And I talked to somebody from Kansas City recently, said, well, I heard your campaign's pretty much a low-key campaign. It's low-key because you don't see any television or radio commercials, but we are working real hard on the ground contacting people who are likely March and April voters, which is a relatively small number of people. We know that there's nothing else on the ballot citywide that's going to really draw turnout. This is the only thing. We're basically asking people to go to the polls and vote for a tax that's already in place. So we've been very targeted. We have a very targeted campaign, and we're focusing on those voters. It's a ground campaign. I've gone out. First of all, you've asked whether we're overconfident. We are confident. We are not overconfident here. We're not taking this for granted. I've always said, though, that I trust the people of St. Louis to do the right thing if they are armed with facts. And that's what we're doing. That's what this campaign's about. We're knocking on doors. We're making phone calls. We're making a lot of individual connections with likely voters. I've been myself to over 80 meetings in the city, community organizations, ward organizations, and other meetings, town hall meetings, all over the city of St. Louis, connecting with individual voters. People who show up at meetings are more likely to vote. And if there's an average of 30 people, 40 people a meeting, you're talking about anywhere between 25, 3,200 people I've talked to personally on this issue.
What's been the response at the meetings?
We're getting good response, but what I'm worried about is turnout. And let me tell you why. Prop A was defeated in the city of St. Louis 32% to 68%. I mean, it lost by that margin. The 32% that voted for Prop A, which are potentially, anti-Prop E people, represents about twice the number of people who voted in the April 2007 election. And there are more people who voted for Prop A than typically, historically, vote the total votes in an April election. So now we know that not everybody who voted in the November election is going to vote in April, because there was a lot of high-profile Prop A, Prop B, Prop C, U.S. Senate campaign, sure, congressional campaigns, and those kinds of things. But this is a different campaign. Very low voter turnout. We're trying to get people motivated. That's not easy to do.
No.
So we are not taking this for granted.
You talk about low voter turnout. Some of the numbers that came from SLU in the 2008 election, November election to elect President Obama, SLU voters turned out in 70%. There was a 70% turnout for the SLU's election place, which is at the Bush Student Center. 5 months later, in the April municipal election, your election, to re-elect you for your third term, there was only a 3% turnout of these same voters. They weren't on spring break. They were all doing the same thing, and they still had the election at the Bush Student Center. How do you get students engaged in municipal elections?
Well, that's really, I would tell you, that's a question that we always have. How do you motivate people to vote in low-profile elections, or elections where it's not a national election? This is a national phenomenon. This is not something that's happening just in the city of St. Louis. If you look at cities all over America, fewer and fewer people are voting in local elections. I think we may want to move these local elections on to like the November election, so that more and more people vote. I don't know why they don't get engaged. These are important elections. These local office holders are important to what happens on the local level. It impacts people very directly. I know that, I went to St. Louis University. I talked to some students over there during my campaign. We got some students involved. We tried to get them to help us, recruit not only volunteers, but also get people motivated. It's very, very difficult to do. I've been in some communities where, you talk about the importance of the election. People, it's really hard to get people to come out on an election unless they feel like there's something really important that they need to vote on that's going to make a difference. And in April elections, typically, unless there's a really hotly contested mayoral race on the ballot really generally don't draw a lot of people out. Now that's totally against how I was brought up, and the family I brought up. I grew up in a political family, so we basically were taught that you vote in every single election. So I try to do that, but people are hard to motivate. I really don't know how you do that other than try to get them to understand the importance of the election and communicate with them in a more direct way.
Yeah.
It is hard. I can tell you this, for example, in my election, over 50% of the people that had my lawn signs on their lawns, these are people that asked for a lawn sign. They said they supported me, didn't even go to the polls and vote. Now, we can speculate on why that was the case. My guess is they thought, well, they're supporting me, they've got my sign up, I'm helping out, he's going to be okay, he's going to get elected, which is what happened. I won by a large margin. It was a landslide victory. But so it pretty much confirmed their own thought that you didn't need my vote anyway. So I think that's part of it's not so much apathy as it is partially apathy, but it's also partially, well, it's not important this time. When he really needs us, we'll go there. So
you're hoping that they turn out for the proper vote, right?
And that's my biggest concern. The only way we lose this election is if the electorate sits at home, because we're looking at, there may be as low as an 8% turnout citywide for something that's really important to the future of the city. That's pretty. It's not unusual. I mean, it's just doesn't just happen here in St. Louis.
And again, that was part one of our three-part series, sitting down and talking with the mayor of St. Louis, Mayor Francis Slay. Some pretty interesting things he had to say about the Proposition E, and some interesting things he had to say about voter turnout. Again, 3% voter turnout. By the way, joining us now is Brett Kostreski, senior political analyst for Monday's Midtown. A 3% voter turnout, not the best thing to have for a university.
No,
with an on-campus polling place.
It's really too bad. I wish people were a little more informed about these elections. I think that's the issue.
And of course, Mondays at Midtown is your only source for information about these local elections. All the information you need can be found here and not in a print newspaper. Brett, let's talk about the opposition note to Proposition E. The 1%, not too many cities have an earnings tax as it is. Does having a 1% earnings tax hinder growth and development in a city that's obviously struggling?
Well, if you look at St. Louis and the way it's hemorrhaging residents and businesses, Fortune 500 companies have been leaving the city in droves over the past couple decades. I think it's pretty clear that earnings taxes do have an effect on city business. And if you look at the biggest cities in the country, such as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, they do have earnings taxes. But there are a lot of big cities out there, bigger than St. Louis, that are thriving without an earnings tax. And I can see where the pushback is coming from at City Hall. But because they are looking at losing a third of their operating budget, which is huge. But I also
about the size of the police department.
It's a lot of money. It's absolutely a lot of money, and the mayor is probably right to be against it in the interests of his city government. However, I think you have to look at the priorities of the taxpayers, and what I think the argument is mostly scare tactics coming from the government right now.
But now, what about the issue that the tax is unfair because local municipalities around the area don't have to pay the tax? But if you live in, let's say, Clayton, but you work in the city of St. Louis, you have to pay that 1% earnings tax. Is that unfair for people who live and work in the city, having to pay that?
I think it is unfair. I think it's unfair that the city has this tax, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people are leaving into the county. And what a lot of people are forgetting is that this tax, if this proposition is voted in such a way that the tax does get repealed, it's going to take a whole decade, 10 years for this thing to get phased out.
So it's not going to be $140 million
right.
overnight.
And that's what I think the point is being made by people in favor of keeping this tax, is that overnight you're going to lose all these services, the city's going to collapse, there's going to be no money, when in fact they're going to lose only 3% of their budget every year for the next 10 years. And you're telling me that that's not cuttable? I think that's quite an outrageous argument to make.
Do you think that the city relies too much on the earnings tax for a third of its budget?
I do, and I think that the fact that that's such a big part of the budget is the reason why this needs to be taken on. No city government politician, definitely not in the past several years, and I don't think in any near future, is going to stake their entire political career on shaking up a big city government by saying that we're going to get rid of an earnings tax. And the only way that's going to happen is if the voters take away this money and force the city to make these serious reforms, because clearly they have some budget problems. They're running out of money. They're operating on too much on this earnings tax, and I think that's the problem. And it's going to take the voters at this election tomorrow to really show the city that we're serious about changing the way the city government operates.
And it's interesting because the proposition that was passed by statewide in November, pretty overwhelmingly too, says that we have to have a reoccurring vote on this. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, that aspect of it happening every 5 or 6 years, and then also potentially, so that some people has raised concerns about the city's bond rating, and people who would want to lend money to a city that could potentially lose a third of its budget every year. I mean, isn't that an issue too, though?
It is an issue, but why? That's the problem that we have to face, and why should we continue to operate in a way where this is going to be a problem when we can take this head on? The voters can force the city to change the way its budget is set up, and then make the city perhaps operate more streamlined and more functionality, and that'll maybe set the stage for a merger in the future with the county, because I think the budget problems are also a big reason why the county wants nothing to do with the city. So this vote is more not just about losing 30% of the budget, but about forcing the city to reevaluate the way money comes in and out, how it spends it, how it receives it, and I think it'd be good for the city if over the next several years it starts looking at alternatives to collecting revenue and spending money other than this 1% earnings tax.
Well, I guess we'll have to see what happens. It'll be interesting to
it'll
see how
definitely-
tomorrow's vote turns out.
definitely want to see
You can always go to our Facebook page, because we'll put those results on our Facebook page, or you can tweet at me.
Make sure you vote.
That's the most important aspect, obviously, getting out to the election and vote, because again, people.
It's your city.
It's your city. It's your country, and when you say it's your country, it's people. I guess have. Back in the day, they died for your right to vote, right?
That was very important, and it's just a shame that that's not the case.
I guess I always said, besides jury duty, rather, your only true duty as a citizen should be to vote.
It's the most important thing.
That's all you have to do.
And so just take the time to read up on these issues and get out there and vote. And if you think about it, what is the first level of government you see as a person walking around the city? You don't see the federal government, you see the city government.
Yep, you drive on their streets every day, and they're rebuilding the bridge just south of our campus. So,
Yeah.
Brett, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry.
And we will be right back.
Monday, can't trust that day.
And welcome back. This week is Atlas Week here at St. Louis University, and to discuss what Atlas Week is, we are joined now by Max Jordan. Max is the co-chair of internal publicity for the Atlas Week. Hi, Max.
Hi, Mark. It's good to see you, as always.
Good to see you, as always. Welcome back to the show. Give us a quick rundown on what Atlas Week is all about.
Atlas Week is the premier event on St. Louis University's campus to celebrate international diversity and the great issues that are facing the entire world population at this time. Our theme this year is meeting global needs, and or basic human needs, rather. And as always, this week is sponsored by Sam and Marilyn Fox, and their generosity is greatly appreciated. They're tremendous people, and we wouldn't have this program without them.
Before we go into some of the activities of Atlas Week, a little fun fact for you. Where was Sam Fox was the U.S. ambassador to what country?
Here's Belgium.
Belgium. In the neighboring country, he was the U.S. ambassador to Belgium when Mondays in Midtown contributor Ann Wagner was the U.S. ambassador to Luxembourg. So
Yes, they were.
that's pretty-
Absolutely.
You got two St. Louisans right next to each other.
It's wonderful.
Pretty interesting stuff there. Max, so what are some of the highlights of this week?
Well, we have over 100 events this week. Tremendous. Every department on campus is represented in some capacity during this week. Our major events at 5:30 on April 7th, Secretary General Irene Khan of Amnesty International will be the keynote speaker. Secretary Khan was the first female to ever hold that position, and we're really excited to have her. Her keynote will be tremendous. A little plug, I'm going to be introducing her, so
No big deal, no
it's
big
no big deal. But that's the highlight of the week. I'm doing an event on April 7th as well, and it's at 3 o'clock, and it's called Disparate Interests, examining the interactions between the U.S. government and the Group of 77 in the UN system. I know it's a boring title, but the paper's really good. So I'm doing that, but every department is represented. We have a large amount of poli-sci events. We have some education events. Everything that you could possibly imagine is represented. And we're really feeling good. We've really got our act together. We're on the right track.
Good. And if people want more information about Atlas Week, where can they go find out that information from?
atlas.slu.edu.
And where can they get these little passports from, too?
These wonderful passports, which are assembled by our committee, are available all around campus. Ask your professors. There is a specific table in the BSC that's manned about 5 hours a day, and you can get them at any Atlas event you go to. The schedule's all over campus. It's those nice pink posters, and I encourage every student to attend. It's a tremendous week, and you learn a lot about the world.
Next, thanks for coming on. We'll look forward
Pleasure,
to Atlas
Mark,
Week.
as always.
And right now, it's time for a little segment that looks at last week's storm spotting class. The official storm spotting trainer of Mondays in Midtown, National Weather Service meteorologist Jim Cramper. He was at SLU last week to talk about storms. Take a look.
More and more debris. I think I'm getting ready to get hit. Oh my God, it's right next to me. Oh, sweet Jesus, it's right next to me.
Jesse just had a religious experience. There's the core of it over there. It's not that far away. But luckily it's not that strong. Because if
It may not have been that strong of a tornado, but National Weather Service meteorologist Jim Cramper still uses that clip to train civilians on the hazards of severe weather. Cramper took his traveling storm show to Midtown last week as a part of SLU's emergency preparedness effort in training members of the campus. From the development of twisters to myths associated with the storms, more than 30 faculty, staff, and students from SLU learned the principles of being an official National Weather Service storm spotter, which Cramper explains is extremely beneficial when issuing warnings.
Storm spotters basically provide us what we call ground truth information. Radar can show us a lot of things in the storm, but it can't tell us for sure what's actually happening at the ground. I can suspect what's there. I can suspect there's strong winds, suspect there's hail. I don't know for sure the strength of the wind or the size of the hail or even if there is a tornado until somebody actually sees it and tells us. So that gives us the ground truth, so we definitely know for sure what's happening.
How often do you do storm spotting classes?
Most of the classes are done pretty much from January through April. We have 46 counties to cover, so a lot of them do try to get it in that time period. So there are certain weeks I'm out doing this 3-4 nights a week, and sometimes on weekends too, depending on when they want to have a class and how many people might show up.
Sure.
We do a few classes also in the fall, so there'll be some scattered around in September, October as well.
As we head into severe weather season, well, I guess our severe weather season's been accumulated with different months like December now, but as we head into the official severe weather season, what's your biggest fear for residents of Missouri? I mean, as you're a member of the National Weather Service, people who warn the residents of Missouri and Illinois, what's your biggest fear?
Our biggest concern typically is nighttime events, nocturnal, so to speak, severe storms and thunderstorms, which do happen. We do get tornadoes after sunset. They're not all in the late afternoon, evening when there's light. Some of them do occur in the middle of the night, midnight, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. Those are the ones that really worry us because there's a lot of people are just asleep. They're not going to sometimes get the warning if they're not paying attention. They don't have a weather radio that will wake them up. So they're really the nocturnal events are our biggest concern.
And again, we thank Jim Cramper from the National Weather Service for coming to St. Louis University to give his storm spotting class. And I'm a firm believer that Jim Cramper gives the best storm spotting classes. And for more information about the storm spotting class from the National Weather Service, because it will be coming to SLU again, you can always email the Campus Emergency Response Team at cert@slu.edu. It's politics time, though, and joining us now, Republican strategist Danny Laub and Democratic strategist J.P. Johnson. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark.
Officially today, President Obama announced that he will be running for re-election. Are you shocked?
Crazy shocked. I mean, we saw this coming. Nothing is exciting. Nothing is thrilling. I mean, it was going to happen, so it's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm. One thing presidents like doing more than being president is running for re-election to be president for one more term. So, no, not shocked at all.
No shocked at all. I found it interesting that he decided he was going to announce his re-election campaign the same day where his attorney general came out and said, basically, hey, we've reversed our decision. We've come to a conclusion on our decision, at least, to not try some of the conspirators of September 11th in federal courts. He basically said, he reversed his decision today, saying that there's been too much pressure from the Congress and other means to actually try them in federal courts, and so we're just going to do the military tribunals at Gitmo. Does that surprise either one of you? That he has come out and said that for sure that we're not going to do this and we're not going to close it right now?
Well, it's one thing that surprises me and one thing that doesn't. First, to what surprises me, the No Drama Obama campaign that then Senator Obama ran in 2008, you didn't have these leaks, you didn't have these messaging issues, and clearly throughout his administration you've had these where he's going to announce his reelection and then you have his Attorney General making his boneheaded statement. I'm not surprised that it's going back to the military tribunal for two reasons. One, Mayor Bloomberg flip-flopped on his message about 6 months ago when he accepted the case being tried in New York City, and then he reneged and said he didn't want it to be tried in New York City because he got blowback from the citizens. And then you had Attorney General of New York, Cuomo, saying that he didn't want it in New York either. And now he's Governor Cuomo, he is steadfast to that position. So I'm not surprised they went back to the military tribunals. What I am surprised about is the messaging that came or that was packaged with that, saying that it's better to be in federal courts, but we're going to the military tribunals anyway.
Yeah, I found that interesting too, Danny, because you said the best option is clearly having it in federal courts. So I'm like, and Annie also said that it was an executive decision. So on both of which I'm like, well, then why don't you do it?
Well, that's the thing. If it's an executive order, you got to run with the executive order and not say now that you're bowing to the pressure, or else what's the point of an executive order? I think it's going back to the conversation months ago where we're playing hot potato, where everyone says, let's do this in federal court, but I don't want it in my federal court, and you don't want it in your federal court. So, like, you can't say you want it and then no one wants it. That just doesn't make sense.
Do you think that perhaps the Obama administration realized that the American people didn't want them to be tried in federal courts?
Well, I think the American people, in particular congressmen and senators, normally bow to fear. So, having criminals being tried in their backyard is probably not something they want to deal with. And then having federal tax money earmarked for that specific issue is not something that taxpayers want to pay for in their home state either. So I think those two things will always knock congressmen and senators back on their heels. And ultimately, the administration will bow down to the pressure of their own party, to the people that are fundraising for them, and ultimately to what the people want. Interesting.
Let's switch topics real quick to the ever-popular Missouri Senate race of 2012. Apparently, it's going to be hotly contested. I don't know what's going on there. There's two candidates that have declared on the Republican side. Former Chief of Staff to Governor Matt Blunt, Ed Martin, who lost his campaign against Congressman Russ Carnahan, and then you have former State Treasurer Sarah Steelman. What's going on with that race on the Republican side, JPJ, and what's all this about Eric Clare?
Well, for one thing, I don't take Ed Martin as a serious candidate. He did almost upset Russ Carnahan, but people must remember that there are 87 new congressmen in the 2010 House, and he was one of those congressmen or one of those candidates that didn't win. So even in a record year for Republicans and the Tea Partiers, he still didn't win. So I don't think he's going to have a better chance when Obama's at the top of the ticket. You're going to have more African Americans and more young people coming out. He's not going to have a chance to win. But in terms of him running against Sarah Steelman, I think that Sarah Steelman proved herself to be a different type of Republican. I think that's going to bode well for the Tea Partiers. They're going to be backing one of these two candidates unless somebody else jumps into their race. And her being a woman, I think that also bodes well for her.
Let me ask you this real quick, JPJ. President Obama did not win Missouri in 2008.
Very true.
Won't that have an impact on Senator McCaskill's reelection?
No, because in various parts of the country, particular candidates ran better than Obama by either 5 to 10 percentage points. You look at Pennsylvania, you look at Florida, you look at some congressional districts around the country, particularly in the South and in the Midwest. A lot of candidates, if they're middle class, white women or white men, they ran better than President Obama. And for whatever reason, he just doesn't connect with those people at a particular level. in Missouri, for example, you have a lot of evangelical voters that make up some 30% below St. Louis City and St. Louis County. And those people did not vote for Obama, whereas for Jay Nixon, they voted for overwhelmingly. So I think Claire McCaskill proved herself when she ran against Jim Talent to be a formidable figure, a formidable fundraiser. And I think she's going to do about 5 to 10 percentage points better than Obama.
Interesting. And Danny, I mean, it does seem like, for the most part, that Senator McCaskill, I mean, even though she is a Democrat, she has some independent thoughts and votes in the past, I guess, her past 5 years as a senator from Missouri. What about this new, I guess, scandal that's come out about her private jet?
Well, the harsh reality of Claire McCaskill is that she tries to paint herself as a moderate, and at the end of the day, that she's another Obama stamp. And when it comes down to it, when she beat Senator Talent, it was a different time. In 2008, it was a different time, and you can hardly compare the tickets of the governor's race and the presidential race, because that election was just a whole. I mean, it's not a typical election. But the fact is, Obama did lose Missouri, and it's going to hurt Claire McCaskill. And Claire McCaskill and Obama are closely tied to each other. There's plenty of YouTube videos that can prove that to anyone who wants to see it. I mean, they're like best buds flying over the country for political events. I mean, it's just a joke. And now she's talking about transparent. She's a transparent and accountable senator, where she's been claiming how she's a taxpayer watchdog for her entire years so far in the Senate. And then it comes out with that she not only is paying herself for political use, because she owns the plane company that she pays herself for 89 trips. Then on top of that, she hasn't paid out close to $300,000 in taxes, which doesn't sound like someone who said not too long ago that I think that we need to have a bill passed that says if you're a federal employee and you're not paying your taxes, you should be thrown out of the government. And that's exactly what she is. She's a federal employee not paying her taxes. I mean, she's nothing short of a hypocrite here, and Missouri deserves better.
I mean, it's kind of true, JPJ. I mean, for all people who own a private plane, myself being one of them, you know that you have to pay taxes on those planes.
Well, I will confess that Mark's plane is very nice. I've been in it a few times.
Thank you.
But comparing or trying to tie McCaskill to Obama is like what the Democrats tried to do in time McCain to George Bush. It's just not true. I mean, it's just not true. I mean, if you look at the voting record, she does not vote in lockstep with the Obama administration. On cuts, on spending, she's different. On military strategy, she's different than what the Obama administration has put forth. So let's just be clear about that. And on the second hand, let's not put the sins of the husband on the sins of the wife. Her husband is a very wealthy individual. Her husband almost cost her the election against Jim Talent early on because of the nursing home scandals and things of that nature. So I do understand that when rich people and when federal employees don't pay taxes on time or don't report taxes on time, we tend to try to paint them as either hypocrites or paint them as people that aren't being fully honest. But not only did she lay down on the sword, say that she and her husband did make these mistakes, but she's personally going to pay for those taxes, or those back taxes, and she's going to open up the financial reports to everything with the plane and make her husband sell the plane. So, you know, we can criticize her for now, but let's also give her some credit for being accountable, unlike most senators and congressmen in federal government today.
Well, interesting. I'm not selling my plane. Final thoughts, Danny, real quick.
If her hand wasn't caught in the cookie jar, there wouldn't be any of this transparency happening. It's only because she got caught. And I don't understand how you have a political operation. You're a U.S. senator where you're surrounded by hundreds of paid staffers, legal people, and no one at any time in her whole administration was like, maybe we should look into whether taxes were paid on the plane. It's just simply outrageous.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll leave it there for that issue. Really quickly, before we end this conversation, when you're sitting at your houses or your places of residence or your favorite hangout spots, and you see that there was a 3% student voter turnout rate for an on-campus with an on-campus polling place, 3%. I mean, all you have to do is stop by and vote real quick. Does that surprise you? 3% of registered student voters voted in the last election for municipal election?
It's certainly disheartening, and it's a really sad. It's a sad thing for this campus, for students in general, and for the process. I mean, it pretty much shows that all the research is true, that students care only about the top of the ticket election. That if there's a president of the United States, they care, and they don't care about other issues. And that's exactly what it proved. That's what the election boards have been saying for years. And this university proved right. They just don't care about mayoral elections or aldermanic elections. They just don't care.
And JPJ, apparently they don't care about a third of the city's budget either. I mean, isn't this an issue?
Well, I'll go one step further. I'll say it's disappointing. One reason Republicans have always been successful is because they always say that the federal government has too much control in our personal lives, in our taxes, in the decisions we make. And when we vote, we kind of pan that out. We only vote for the top of the ticket election, so we only vote for the senators, or we only vote for governors or the president, and we only do that at some 60 to 65% percentage points. So when you have people voting at those levels, it's no surprise that the federal government has so much control. If you want people to start voting more in local elections, you got to tailor the message that it actually impacts the municipalities, the aldermen, the streets, the police officers, the firefighters, the teachers. I mean, if you're going to have a third of the city's budget cut, who are they going to run to? They're going to run to the federal government, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So.
But then again, SLU voters shouldn't have to worry about the city around them, right? They're not
in the
affected.
city.
We're
We're not in the city.
We're in our own little bubble.
We're not in the city.
Gentlemen,
They'll care when they start paying taxes.
right? Oh yeah, exactly.
And they'll be Republican.
Gentlemen, thanks for being here. And right now, it's time for communicating with Dr. Z. Schaefer.
Good afternoon again. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about leadership. Now, most students don't typically think about leadership because it's more of an academic concept, but I challenge my students to think about it more in terms of how they can apply leadership ideas in their everyday lives. Because for me, there's a big difference between a formal title or a position of a leader and someone that exudes leadership qualities. Many people tend to think of traits that someone has in terms of leadership. So being intelligent, being personable, being sociable, etc. And although those are useful things, that's not the only thing that constitutes what a leader is or what a leader can be. Effective leaders know how to adapt their communication style. They know how to involve people in decision making, which we'd call democratic in the academy. They also know how to delegate responsibility and make decisions quickly when need be. But most importantly, leaders also assess the situation. They assess who their followers are and who their members are. So if you have highly motivated, intelligent followers, you generally don't want to micromanage those type of people. So you'll give them an instruction and then let them take that instruction to its fruition, which would be then laissez-faire leadership. Finally, most effective leaders are very functional in the sense that they pay attention to goals and tasks and make sure that a group or an organization stays on the path to achieving that. For me, a bit of bias here, being a communication professor, I think leadership is in its discourse, meaning it's in what you say and how you say it. So when we think of leaders, we think of milestone decisions, like the Obama speech on Libya. He came out and gave his reasons for going to war against Gaddafi. However, for me, leadership mostly occurs in hallway conversations, in informal chats with your teammates or your organizational members. So just know that leadership isn't always about the big decision or delegating responsibility. It also involves those instances when no one's looking and you have to have integrity. Thank you.
And again, that was communicating with Dr. Z. Schaefer. Mondays in Midtown at gmail.com if you have a comment. Joining us now, Willie McKenna, our senior sports analyst, to talk some sports. Hello, Willie.
How you doing, Mark?
The Blues, their season's wrapping up, isn't it?
Yeah, for all the Blues fans out there, it's probably a little bitter to talk about, so we should probably just pass on Blues talk.
All right, let's go over to the Cardinals. The Cardinals didn't have the greatest opening weekend.
No, not too good. Opening day, it looked like they were going to seal up a win there. Unfortunately, 2 outs in the in the top of the ninth. Ryan Franklin gives up a solo home run to Cameron Maben, and that goes on to tie the game. Goes into 11 innings, and the Cardinals finally fall at the score of 5-3 there in the 11th inning. So really tough, blown save by Ryan Franklin. Tough game to swallow for opening day. They went on to lose again to the Padres, but they finished that series up with at least a win there at the end, and they're also having the Pirates this upcoming week, which should be a nice bounce back for them.
I think yesterday's win really sealed the deal for me, at least in terms of I now know, and I'm confident that the Cardinals will win the World Series.
I mean, I don't know if I can exactly confirm that. I can't deny it right now.
Well, you're the sports
either,
guy.
though.
You should be able to.
I cannot confirm that pick.
But you can't deny it either.
I can't deny it either. But a big problem for the Cardinals right now is health. And Matt Holliday had an emergency appendectomy the other day, and he's not on the disabled list yet. They're trying to hold off, so we'll see where that goes, because that could be a big loss for the Cardinals.
I actually think tonight's game is Matt Holliday mini bat giveaway night for all those youngsters, 15 and
Is
younger.
it now?
I think so.
How about that?
So go out there and get one of those bats if you're younger than 15, apparently, or something like that. It doesn't matter. Willie, thanks for joining us. Real quickly, UConn or Butler tonight?
I'm going to have to go with UConn.
Okay. And we're also going to have to go with Lyle's Corner.
Whoa, it's Lyle's Corner, boys and girls, come on down. You'll learn about cool things around the town. It's Lyle's Corner! Corner!
Now remember, the views expressed on Lyle's Corner don't necessarily reflect those of Mondays in Midtown, the University, or Father Biondi. Captivating piece, though, as always. We have a few viewer messages coming to us right now. The first one comes from the world of Gmail. You can always write to us again, mondaysinmidtown@gmail.com. Aaron Francis writes in, "Hey Mark, I'm a huge fan of Mondays in Midtown. Writing to ask you to send me the link to tonight's episode as I will be at work and cannot watch live. I'm working at Patty O'Reilly's right outside of the stadium," which I think is also known as Patios. Patty O'Reilly's outside of the stadium. We completely redid the bar, and there's a brand new rooftop bar. Remind everyone to get their booties down here to party before and after the game. Also, I have a fun idea. I know you're a huge fan of Jersey Boys. I am too. Let's start a countdown on the show. I have never seen Jersey Boys. I'm a huge fan of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and I work at the Fox Theater. I've never seen, again, though, Jersey Boys. We are both fans, though, I guess, of Frankie Valli, so we can start the countdown. The Jersey Boys starts the second week of May at the Fox Theater, so put up the countdown. We don't have the countdown graphic. That's all right. We'll get it to you some other time. So thanks, Aaron, for that message. We appreciate it. We also have a message from someone out in the Twitter world, Human Torpedo, which is Tim R. He writes, Mark J. Zinn, which is on Twitter, at Mark J. Zinn, that it looked like I was pretty upset during last week's MIM, and I should smile more often. Okay? Well, that leads us to our final thoughts. My final thoughts of this week have to do with, local elections. It's your duty and it's your right to vote. Even though the University News apparently doesn't care enough to run the story that I wrote for them, it's important that this program serves as an ambassador to that, because people in the SLU community sometimes live in a SLU bubble. They don't care about it. Why would we care about local issues? Why would we care about the city of St. Louis? Gee, I don't know, maybe the namesake of this university is founded from that very city. It wasn't founded because of King Louis IX. It was founded because St. Louis was already a city here. Our university sits inside of St. Louis City and is surrounded by St. Louis City. So therefore, you as leaders of the world should care about what's going on around you and the community. After all, isn't that what Jesuit education is all about? So those are my final thoughts. Send us an email, mondaysmidtown@gmail.com, or tweet at me. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I have some great news. Our favorite person on Mondays in Midtown, our official meteorologist of Mondays in Midtown, and an overall ambassador from Mondays in Midtown to the world, Mike Roberts. Of course, all those things apply to Mike Roberts, News Channel 5 meteorologist. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike Roberts' birthday today. Thanks. Mike Roberts is, of course, 35 years old today, and to help celebrate Mike Roberts' birthday, we have swapped out the Alonzo Garbanzo Clip of the Week to give you the Mike Roberts Clip of the Week. So without further ado, thanks for watching Mondays in Midtown. Hope you have a great night. Vote tomorrow, because again, it's important, right? People died for your right to vote and your opportunity to vote. So you should vote tomorrow at the polling place, and then you will also be able to enjoy this Mike Roberts Clip of the Week. Good night, and happy birthday, Mike.
Hopefully nice weather is on the menu this weekend.
And Mike Roberts joins us live from the festivities. Mike?
I've already been sampling that weather, and the menu does look good. It looks hot, lots of food, lots of fun, and I think I'm violating some part of my contract right now. Oh yeah, we're skiing.
And she was like, if it's Sarah Steelman and Ed Martin in the race, we're going to start Republicans from McCaskill.
Well, it's not like, for me, it's like, I don't think McCaskill's that bad. I mean, she's moderate. I don't think she's that bad of a senator.
These two yahoos.
Right, exactly. But then again, if it's Aiken, Steelman, and Martin, I'm like, what? I don't know if I can participate. Oh, no.
It's like you're wearing a mask. How do you do that? I would just hate for this whole Air Claire thing to blow up and Republicans can't capitalize because we have morons running. You know?
Yeah.
That's just the sad part.
What's your gut telling you, though? Oh. That's pretty cool. Danny's behind me.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good evening, Danny.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
Doing great.
Did you text JPJ? Did you text JPJ? We were looking over there. We just watched Mayor Slay's interview, and it was captivating. You just say it's Rich. Just say it's Rich. No, the brown box is the monitor.
Oh, I don't think they would notice.
No, same thing.
When am I looking away?
When I start talking, look at the camera.